pivotal moment, I see several priorities for the global agenda. We must continue to fight against the global pandemic. We must revitalize the global economy and accelerate its transition to net zero. We must preserve biodiversity by deploying nature-based solutions, and we must narrow the gap between the rich and the poor to achieve more sustainable global development.
JennyEason here, and today I want to talk about Klaus Schwab. Now, Klaus Schwab, we hear his name thrown around a lot. He is someone that's rather new to me. I had not heard his name prior to 2020, I'll say for me. But I don't know a lot about him, and I thought I'd take a little quick review and research him a little bit. So let's kind of dive into something on Klaus Schwab. His middle name, or full name rather, is Klaus Martin Schwab, born March 30th, 1938. He is a German engineer and economist, best known as the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He was born in Ravensburg, and his mother from Zurich, father from Roggwil, and his father was a manager of a company in Ravensburg, and that company was, I believe, a Swiss industrial company with a focus on engineering and turbine construction. The family was monitored by the Gestapo, and the Gestapo being, let me just kick the wiki on the Gestapo for people who, we need a review sometimes. I'll read the wiki so you don't have to, okay? Don't worry. All right, so the Gestapo is a term that's often referred to as secret police. So this is basically the state police, officially of the Nazi Germany, Third Reich, or whatever you could say, German-occupied Europe. So it was created in 1933, and by combining the various police agencies of Prussia into one organization. So in 1934, oversight of the Gestapo passed to the head of the SS, who was Heinrich Himmler, who was appointed chief of German police by Hitler in 1936. So that is basically what the Gestapo is. So it says that Klaus Schwab's family was monitored by the secret police, the Gestapo. I wonder why. Which also interrogated his mother in 1944 for using a Swiss accent in public. The family then repatriated to Switzerland. He is a citizen of Germany, although he has 3 Swiss grandparents and 2 Swiss brothers. Schwab attended primary school in Wädenswil in Switzerland. And after World War II, the family moved back to Germany, where Schwab attended the Sphone Gymnasium in Ravensburg. In 1961, he graduated as a mechanical engineer from Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, and he was awarded a doctorate in engineering. So he looked at longer-term export credit as a business problem in mechanical engineering. He was also awarded a doctorate in economics from the University of Freiburg and a Master of Public Administration degree from the John F. Kennedy School of Government of Harvard University. His career pretty much goes from being a professor of business policy at the University of Geneva, 1972 to 2003. And since then, he's also maintained an honorary professorship at the university. He published the Global Competitiveness Report. This is an annual report assessing the potential for increasing productivity and economic growth of countries around the world, and it's written by a team of economists. All right, so this report is based on methodology developed by Schwab, measuring competitiveness, not only in terms of productivity, but also based on sustainability criteria. This is a guy I am definitely sure we need to pay attention more to, as you can already see what it looks like. All right, so during the early years of his career, he served on a number of company boards, such as the Swatch Group, the Daily Mail Group, and Vontenbell Holding. He is a former member of the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. So Schwab founded the Economic Management Forum in 1971, which in 1987 became the World Economic Forum, often referred to simply as Davos, the name of the town where the forum is hosted each year. So in 71, he published Modern Enterprise Management in Mechanical Engineering. In that book, he argued that the management of a modern enterprise must serve both shareholders and corporate stakeholders to achieve long-term growth and prosperity. Schwab has championed the multi-stakeholder concept since the World Economic Forum's inception. In 2015, the World Economic Forum was formally recognized by the Swiss government as an international body. That is very key. That was 2015. So an international body, we can really unpack that. So the world, let me just repeat it because I need to hear it again. The World Economic Forum in 2015 was formally recognized by the Swiss government as an international body. All right. So he has already appointed his successor, and this would be Jose Maria Figueres, the CEO of the World Economic Forum. So that person resigned, it said, in 2004 over his undeclared receipt of more than, it says, $900,000 in consulting fees from the French telecommunications firm Actel or whatever. It's a let's see, telecommunications company. Alcatel, okay? This is a French-American global telecommunications equipment company headquartered in France. Okay, so in 2006, Transparency International highlighted this incident in which this person resigned in their global corruption report. So Klaus isn't looking too good. All right, so 2004, Schwab created a new foundation using $1 million prize money from the Dan David Prize. He founded the Global Shapers Community, a global network of local communities or hubs of young people. And this is what we're hearing a lot of, and I appreciate when you all drop information for me to read. And you all have identified that Schwab has mentioned that several people that we're seeing on the world stage are part of his young leaders. So I want to get into that a bit. So let's see. So there's a prize here of $1 million that is awarded to global shapers. So again, this is local communities or hubs of young people called shapers, aged 20 to 30, who are exceptional in their potential achievements and drive to make a contribution in their communities. As of September 2021, 444 hubs had been created comprising 10,600 shapers. So that there are 10,600 shapers aged 20 to 30. All right, so his personal life, it says he's been married since 1971 to Hilda, and they live in Switzerland and have 2 children. His daughter is a co-founder of the Gender Equality Project, and son, it says, married to a Chinese woman who heads the World Economic Forum office in Beijing. In 2019, the federal president of Swiss Confederation suggested to the Federal Council that Klaus Schwab, who has lived in Switzerland for 60 years, be granted Swiss citizenship and a Swiss passport based on the cantonal citizenship law. Okay, so a special law. Although Schwab has Swiss parents, the president of the Swiss Federation rejected the application. So his citizenship was rejected. So they didn't grant Swiss citizenship to him. He has received criticism for a salary level and lack of financial transparency, even though he speaks about things like declaring that excessively high management salaries were no longer socially acceptable. So we can see a lot of hypocrisy. So capture of democratic structures and institutions. Schwab, as publisher of the World Economic Forum's 2010 Global Redesign, this report postulates that a globalized world is best managed by a self-selected coalition of multinational corporations, government included through the UN system, and select civil society organizations, or CSOs. He argues that governments are no longer the overwhelmingly dominant actors on the world stage, and that the time has come for a new stakeholder paradigm of international governance. So the World Economic Forum's vision includes a public-private UN in which certain specialized agencies would operate under joint state and non-state governance systems. So what is this sounding like to you all? This is a man who seemed to come out of nowhere, in my view, but he has taken a very prominent, place on the world stage. So according to the Transnational Institute, or TNI, the forum is hence planning to replace a recognized democratic model with a model where a self-selected group of stakeholders make decisions on behalf of the people. The think tank summarizes that we are increasingly entering a world where gatherings such as Davos are a silent global coup d'etat to capture governance. Now, this says everything, and I'm seeing lots of red flags. I should have been paying attention more so to Klaus Schwab. I had known a bit about him, but this is very important to know what this person is doing, and this is deep. So I just want to reread that. This think tank summarized that we are increasingly entering a world where gatherings such as Davos are a silent global coup d'etat to capture governance. So everything is there. Controversy with Davos municipality. In June 2021, Schwab sharply criticized the profiteering, complacency, and lack of commitment by the municipality of Davos in relation to the World Economic Forum annual meeting. He mentioned that the preparation of CV-related meeting in Singapore in 2021-2022 had created an alternative to its Swiss host and sees the chance that the annual meeting will stay in Davos at between 40 and 70%. All right, so yeah, let me read a little bit more to you about, this is aside from this Wikipedia that I find important, okay? So Klaus Schwab is giving Hitler vibes, I'm sure you're picking up on that. He's considered the most dangerous man in our world realm by many who are paying attention. If we time travel to 1934 to Nazi Germany, that's, where he was born in this environment. So he grew up during the Third Reich. So that has influenced his sick and evil worldview. And a country that had a brutal police state, like, I mentioned the Gestapo. They had a lot of fear porn, a steady diet of propaganda a la Joseph Goebbels with the brainwashing and the fake news and the false flags. So the brown shirts were also a factor that he grew up in this environment. So it just paints a picture of who he is. So, in this society, it's lots of agents and provocateurs, a lot of operatives and like oppressive surveillance and control, where the government marries corporations like it is laid out in his, what he believes. So this gives birth to fascism. So eugenics, genocide, and dehumanization are also things that they use to demoralize. And there's a hyper focus on hygiene. So this makes sense that his trajectory was what we're seeing now after an upbringing like that. So now that he's the head of this, big forum, and he has all these young people, which I'm definitely going to look into all of his leaders, that at least some of them that we know about. So he espouses the gospel of the Great Reset. He's written many books, his latest being in 2020, COVID-19, The Great Reset. That's the title of the book. He's enamored with transhumanism, announcing the merger between humans and machines. And you can remember when we did our Metropolis build and the Maschinenmensch, so the robot, right? Quoting from Klaus Schwab, it will be curious mixes of digital and analog life. He muses about sensor, memory, switches, and circuits that can be encoded in common human gut bacteria, and that smart dust arrays of full computers with antennas, each much smaller than a grain of sand, can now organize themselves inside the body, and that implanted devices will likely also help to communicate thoughts normally expressed verbally through a built-in smartphone, and potentially unexpressed thoughts or mood by reading brain waves and other signals. All right, This is a whole lot here. Are you getting the whole Dr. Joseph Mengele vibes from this now? You know, Joseph Mengele was the Nazi doctor known as the Angel of Death. Yeah, that one. So Klaus further states, it is now easier to manipulate with precision the human genome within viable embryos, means that we are likely to see the advent of designer babies in the future who possess particular traits or who are resistant to specific diseases. You know, it looks like Hitler would have crowned this guy for these ramblings. Schwab didn't allow the CV crisis to go to waste as he promoted his hygiene obsession, saying that the pandemic will certainly heighten our focus on hygiene. A new obsession with cleanliness will particularly entail the creation of new forms of packaging. We will be encouraged not to touch the products we buy. Simple pleasures like smelling a melon or squeezing a fruit will be frowned upon, and many even become a thing of the past. So this is total social re-engineering. A PhD that was mentioned in this particular article named Susan Bachrach wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine supporting this thinking by stating, in democratic societies, the needs of public health sometimes require citizens to make sacrifices for the greater good. But in Nazi Germany, national or public health, which was called Volksgesundheit, took complete precedence over individual health care. Physicians and medically trained academics, many of whom were proponents of racial hygiene or eugenics, legitimized and helped to implement Nazi policies aiming to cleanse the German society of people viewed as biological threats to the nation's health. And this really sticks out to me because at one time I wanted to get into public health nursing as a specialty, and something kept me from doing it. And as I grew to see more of the public health, spoken about in the mainstream, I started seeing their positioning and how this all feeds into this grid of control. So it's really clear now to me more than ever, and you probably have seen the same thing. All right, so racial hygiene measures began with the mass sterilization of the genetically diseased and ended up with the near annihilation of European Jewry. Klaus stated that the next hurdle is the political challenge of vaccinating enough people worldwide. We are collectively as strong as the weakest link, with a high enough compliance rate despite the rise of anti-vaxxers. And this whole anti-vaxxer thing, you can see how they've recreated actually what race is. So race, and this is the thing, we fell for the race trap, and a lot of us have a lot of healing to do and a lot of soul searching about race and the issues around it. The thing is that we've all fell into this trick bag of race, whether we want to say, oh, I don't see color and I'm not this and I'm just be honest. We have fallen into the trick bag because we were programmed and conditioned to do so. A lot of us are repenting of our racial, thinking that we've had in the past. That includes everyone. We're coming to realization that we're being played on this checkerboard of black and white mainly. And that's the thing about other races. It just seems like in this game other races don't matter as much as this black-white paradigm, this black-white checkerboard. So this is what they play off of. And a lot of us have fallen for the trick, and we've brought on ourselves a lot of misery for doing so and falling for it. And we have a lot of healing to do. It's not something that we're going to be able to snap our finger and heal from, but we have to do some serious work. And we have to first talk about it and be willing to be honest about it. So this is the thing. If we didn't care about other people that are different from us before, now we see that everybody can be considered the less desirable, that it has nothing to do with the color of your skin anymore. We've seen how they've taken the checkerboard basically and they've tossed it up, okay? They've changed the whole schematic here, where anti-vaxxers are now the blacks, basically, okay? Everybody can be termed black, because black is not a color. Black is a social designation where you fall in the social paradigm, in the hierarchy of being a good citizen. Do you hear what I'm saying? So they have just shown anybody who bought into the racial superiority or anything like that, those days are over. Have you figured that out? It doesn't matter. Nobody has any supremacy in a system like this. And that's what they have done. They laugh behind closed doors at the people who have believed this trick and felt that they were either superior or inferior, because shame on you for thinking that you were inferior, because that in itself brings so much misery, having low self-esteem and walking with that type of energy and carrying the victim mentality all around. You don't think that attracts certain things into a person's life, to believe lies like this and not to believe what Jah, the creator, has said about all of us? Well, these people are now redefining social structures. They are re-engineering the whole game right in front of our faces. So if you haven't noticed, it doesn't matter what color you are. It matters if you're a good citizen, if you do what the state says you should do, because you can be cut off of the privileges of society. So, you know what? How about all you black and white people start to get together and talk more and forgive each other and realize that we've been played big time. Big time. So let me go on to say that, his controversies, I've talked about those. And basically, this is a man who feels that growing up in a fascist state, he wrote that one of the greatest lessons of the past 5 centuries in Europe and America is this: acute crisis contributes to boosting the power of the state. It has always been the case, and there's no reason why it should be different with the COVID-19 pandemic. All right. So he says youth activism is increasing worldwide, being revolutionized by social media that increases mobilization to an extent that would have been impossible before. It takes many different forms, ranging from non-institutionalized political participations to demonstrations and protests, and addresses issues as diverse as climate change, economic reforms, gender equality, and LGBTQ rights. The young generation is firmly at the vanguard of social change. There is little doubt that it will be the catalyst for change and a source of critical momentum for the Great Reset. All right? So this is a person who grew up in fascist Germany, who has enormous influence and has written many books, and his ambitions far exceed that of Hitler, I would say. Hitler is beginning to look like I think he would crown this guy, okay, with this type of ambition and the global governance and things like that. So this is what I wanted to bring in terms of a Klaus Schwab build. Of course, it's so much more to be gleaned from this. Again, I appreciate all of your input. I look forward to having a night class, a live stream really soon. I miss you all, but I wanted to share this one as I come up with these names of these people, and I just want to have a nice collection of history. So when we hear these names, we can put more pieces together and understand why they do what they're doing, other than they're evil. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have nothing to fear, but it's good to know what's going on and who these players are, but not to fear, because Jah knows all. Jah will bring justice, and we just have to have the faith in Jah to know that justice is a certainty and consequences come for all of us. So we all have to repent from a lot of things, from individual to national and collective type of sins, and I'll use that word, because as we enter into wars and we buy the precursors to the war, the story, the narrative they have to tell to gin up the war and get support, many people have to check their hearts right now if they're going into this, I'm on the Ukraine side, I'm on Russia's side. I'm on Ukraine side, I'm on Russia's side. This is like what? A game? This is not a game. And we have seen the bumbling and the lying narratives to get us into wars. We never should forget what happened in Vietnam. We should never forget what happened in the Gulf Wars and in Afghanistan. And how in the world are we even supporting a war at all? So that's all I'll say. I'll get off of my soapbox, but I thank you for listening, and I will talk to you real soon. All right, take care.